This happened 6 months ago, and I still haven't told anyone except my brother. And he doesn't really believe me. Or maybe he just doesn't want to, because if he did, it would mean we both went through something that no one could ever explain. Something that shouldn't have happened in this world.
My name is Daniel, and I used to be a long-haul trucker. Not one of those guys with a full rig. I mostly did desert deliveries for companies moving goods across Arizona and Nevada. Just my old Ford F-350 and a flatbed hitch, loaded with pallets or hardware or irrigation gear, whatever they sent me with.
I liked the work, quiet long hours, just me, the open road, and the radio. I'd stop at the little diners, the mom-and-pop gas stations, the broken vending machines in the middle of nowhere, places people forget exist. I loved that part of America, the part that just feels still. It was a Wednesday, late September. I just finished a job in Reno and had picked up a return haul near Tonopah. Destination was a supply yard in Willcox, Arizona. I planned to do it overnight to beat the heat. My route was set, GPS loaded, gas tank full. All I had to do was follow 95 south until I could cut east through some old state roads. I'd done it before. The sun was just dipping behind the horizon when I turned off the main highway onto a road I didn't remember taking before. It looked normal enough. Cracked asphalt, weather-worn signs, yellow reflectors catching my headlights. It was supposed to be a shortcut, a route my GPS called optimal traffic conditions, and for a while it felt like it was the desert, stretched endlessly on both sides, painted red and gold by the last of the sun, with nothing but low scrub and the occasional rusted fence post. I drove for maybe an hour like that. No other cars, no signs, no service stations, not even a tumbleweed, just flat, silent emptiness. And then the road just ended. I don't mean it forked or turned to gravel, I mean it vanished. Like 1 second I was on pavement, and the next my tires were crunching through soft dirt. I hit the brakes too hard and skidded a few feet before stopping. Dust curling around. I checked the map. It still showed a road clear as day, a long gray line slicing through the land. But when I stepped out and pointed my flashlight forward, there was nothing. No trail, no marks, no tire grooves, like no one had ever driven there before. I reversed a bit, thinking maybe I'd gone off track, but when I backed up, the asphalt was gone behind me too, like I'd crossed some invisible threshold, and now the road had been wiped clean. The only thing around me was the desert flat, wide and windless. I told myself it was just GPS error, that I'd find a real road if I kept going, but I didn't move. I just stood there, breathing hard, staring at the ground, because something didn't feel right. It didn't feel like being lost. It felt like being watched. I called my brother, no service. I tried restarting the GPS, no change. The line was still there, but the road was not. I should have turned around, tried to backtrack. I should have stayed put, waited for sunrise. Maybe walked until I got service. But instead, I got back in the truck and drove forward slowly, eyes locked on the glowing path on my dashboard, pretending it meant something. For a while it worked. The truck bounced through the soft sand, and the brush scraped against the undercarriage, but the wheels kept turning, and the arrow on the map moved with me. Then, I saw lights, 2 of them off in the distance, pale yellow, floating just above the ground like headlights through thick fog. Only there was no fog and no road and no sound. They weren't moving, just hovering there, far out, but getting closer, inch by inch, mile by mile. I slowed down to a crawl, watching the lights grow brighter but not clearer, like they didn't belong to anything, just floating orbs in the dark. And when they got close enough to fill the windshield, I realized they weren't headlights at all. They were eyes, massive glowing eyes the size of basketballs set wide apart, hovering 10 feet above the ground and staring directly at me. I slammed the truck into reverse and backed up fast, the trailer swinging behind me, dust exploding into the air. And when I looked again, they were gone.
Just like that. No trace, no prints, no sound. Just the wind picking up and my own heartbeat shaking my hands. I drove backwards for a good 5 minutes before I turned around again, this time watching the sides of the desert, the rearview mirror, and every inch of ground around me. I kept moving until I saw something else, a small building off to the right, maybe a mile out, just a square shape against the horizon. A possible outpost or rest stop or ranger station, maybe even a mirage. But I had to find out. I turned off the ghost road and started driving across the open desert toward it, bouncing over shrubs and dips in the earth, praying I didn't blow a tire or hit a rock. As I got closer, the shape resolved into a shack. Metal roof, wooden sides, no windows, just a single door hanging off one hinge and a rusted-out sign on the front. I parked a few feet away and stepped out, flashlight in hand. The wind had stopped again. The world was quiet, so quiet I could hear the blood in my ears. The sign read in faded red paint, "Don't look at them." That's it, no other words, just that phrase, painted in shaky, uneven lines, like someone had scrawled it in a hurry, or with shaking hands. I opened the door. The door creaked when I touched it. Just barely hanging there. The wood was so dry it flaked under my fingers, and the hinges gave out with a metal shriek as the whole thing collapsed inward, like it had been waiting for an excuse to fall. Inside it was pitch black, smelled like rust and old oil, or blood. I couldn't tell. I swept my flashlight across the room and saw it was empty. Mostly just one room with a broken chair, a rotted-out cot in the corner, and a bucket half full of something dark. I didn't look closely. I didn't want to. The air was thick, like the shack had been sealed up for decades, but the door was open, and there were no windows, so that didn't make any sense. My light hit the far wall, and I saw something scrawled into the wood. Letters, carved deep and jagged, like with a knife or some sharp metal. That "don't look at them" the same words as outside. Only here they were gouged into the wall over and over again, dozens of times, like whoever wrote it hadn't stopped, even after they ran out of space. Beneath the wall was something even worse. A pile of clothes, not folded, not clean, just dumped in a heap. Dirty, dusty, half-rotted boots, jackets, a ball cap, a single sneaker with the sole half melted, and bones, not full skeletons, just pieces, long and curved like femurs. Maybe some ribs, maybe an arm. Nothing fresh, but still recognizable. And bones, not full skeletons, just pieces, long and curved like femurs. Maybe some ribs, maybe an arm. Nothing fresh, but still recognizable. Don't look at them. I didn't know what them was, but I had a bad feeling it was the eyes I saw back on the road, or whatever was hiding behind them. I thought about driving again, but I was too tired, too scared. So I decided to stay put until sunrise. I figured daylight would make everything feel less insane. I turned off the engine but left the lights on and tried to sleep. I don't know how long I was out before the tapping started. Light at first, like fingers on glass. Only it wasn't glass. It was metal, and it was coming from the back of the trailer. Soft taps, just enough to wake me up. I sat up straight, hands shaking, reached for the flashlight and turned it toward the rear window. Nothing. Then the tapping came again. Only now it was louder, faster, and coming from both sides, like a dozen people were circling the truck, wrapping their knuckles along the frame like they were checking it for cracks or soft spots. I hit the horn. Nothing changed. I flashed the headlights. Nothing changed. I started the engine, and that's when it all stopped. Instantly, completely, like flipping a switch. I was too scared to drive. Too scared to stay, too scared to do anything. So I just sat there with the engine running and my hands locked on the steering wheel, staring into the dark. And that's when I saw them. They weren't glowing this time, just
tall, thin figures, standing out in the desert, maybe 10, maybe more, silhouettes, just barely visible against the starlight. They weren't moving, not swaying, not shifting, just standing. But I knew they were watching me. My mouth went dry. I couldn't even whisper. I felt like if I made a sound, they'd rush the truck and peel it open like a can. Don't look at them. I remembered the sign and turned my eyes away. Stared at the dashboard, at the wheel, at my own knees. Anything but outside. But my body wanted to look. I could feel it. Some sick part of me pulling toward the window, like gravity was bending toward them. I fought it. I kept my head down, and eventually I fell asleep. I think not really asleep, more like I passed out from terror. When I woke up, the sun was up and the desert was empty. No figures, no footprints, no tapping sounds, just heat and silence, and the shack already half buried in sand, like it had been waiting 100 years to vanish. I drove out of there like my life depended on it, because I think it did. The road came back eventually, like it had always been there waiting for me. And I never told anyone, except my brother, who said I must have dreamed it. But I know what I saw, and I know what I didn't look at. I was never supposed to be out there. My dad was the one obsessed with maps, not me. He was a desert cartographer for decades before GPS got big, and even after that he kept drawing maps by hand. He said there were places satellites couldn't see, places the machines refused to register. He was half scientist, half madman, always muttering about gaps in coverage, broken coordinates, twisted terrain. He used to keep a drawer labeled unmapped, full of sketches that didn't match anything on any known grid. After he died last year, I found one of those maps in his jacket pocket. The lines were faint, scribbled like he was scared someone would find it. They formed a loop. No labels, no legend, just a spiral of roads that didn't go anywhere. Drawn in the middle of an empty section of the Mojave. In the corner he'd written, "Return, never." I thought it was nonsense. Grief scribbles from an old man losing it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not even after the funeral. Not even after we boxed up his cabin. So I went out there just to see, just to prove to myself that it was all in his head. I took his old Bronco, packed water, tools, a printed copy of the sketch, and headed toward the section the spiral was drawn in about 30 miles south of Bay. When I got there, I saw it right away. A road that wasn't on any map. Not on Google, not on paper, not on any system I'd ever seen. A thin paved trail winding off into the horizon. No signs, no name, no mile markers. I hesitated, but then I thought about Dad and how he'd devoted his whole life to this, to the idea that something was out there, and if there was ever a chance to see it, this was it. I drove in the road twisted like a snake, curled back on itself, looped in ways that didn't make sense. I checked the odometer, and after 20 minutes I should have gone at least 15 miles, but it only read 3. My phone's compass kept spinning slowly like it was jammed. Eventually I hit a curve that wasn't on the sketch. The lines on Dad's map went straight here, but the real road turned sharp and dipped down into a dry wash, like a small canyon, maybe 10 feet deep. And at the bottom was something wrong. The color of the sand changed from gold to gray. The rocks were wrong too, like melted glass and metal, and shapes that didn't belong to nature or time. I got out to inspect and saw marks in the dust. Bare feet, human-sized, but the toes were too long, and the arches bent backward, like something had walked there that shouldn't exist in our geometry. I turned back to the Bronco and realized the road was gone. The whole thing, just gone. No tire tracks, no curve, no sign it had ever been there behind me. I was in the wash now, with nothing but the warped rocks and the wind. And that's when I heard it. Scraping, dragging, like something metal being pulled slowly across the ground. It was close, but when I turned to look, there was nothing except a shadow that moved wrong. So, here as well. I ran for the Bronco and started it. Immediately floored it in the direction I thought the road had been, but there was only sand and gray and heat. The scraping got louder, closer. The And then the shadow came over me, not above, not behind, but like it was folding inward from the edges of my vision, pressing into my eyes from the sides. And a voice whispered something I will never repeat, something that didn't use language, but bled into my thoughts like oil on paper. I don't remember getting out of there. Woke up parked in front of a diner 100 miles away, engine off, my map folded neatly in my lap, and one of Dad's old pencils tucked into the clip. Maybe me? I burned the map that night, but sometimes in dreams I still see that gray sand and the footsteps that bend the wrong way. The end. This story has now come to an end. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more thrilling and interesting horror stories, then don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my channel. Thank you for watching my video.